Hi, and welcome to another episode of Epic Sketch Time. My name is Mark Monlux. I'm a freelance illustrator. I live in Tacoma, Washington. A couple of webcomics I do is The Return of Stickman and The Comic Critic. And with us today are Ian and Bill. Hey, guys, introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Bill Morse. I'm a freelance illustrator and cartoonist working out of Seattle, Washington. I only do one webcomic called Rhapsodies.
And I'm Ian Castruita. I'm working out of Tempe, Arizona. I'm a graphic designer, illustrator, and comic artist. You can find my stuff at unfedartist.com, and my webcomic is employeesonlycomic.com if you want to check that out.
Is that a new one?
No, it's an old one. I just haven't mentioned it in a while. I don't update it as often as but it's been a while since I've updated it. I have a lot of comics that are just not finished, but I've been hoping to make a new website for it, so that's kind of why it's been on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
I typed the address into the chat. Did I spell it correctly?
Employeesonlycomic.com.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So how's everybody doing?
Pretty good. Had a relatively slow day, but I'm picking up the pace. Been trying to brainstorming about everything that could go wrong at a very posh event. And
what event is that?
According to the storyline, it's some really a fancy party at a consulate, and I need to think of all sorts of ways for chaos to erupt for comic purposes. And I'm also, because I'm focusing on this story so much, I'm trying to think of my Christmas story early. And at this very moment, oh, that's clever.
Oh, this is for an editorial that I'm hoping to do for this guy. He likes to do weird religious commentary illustrations.
Okay, I mean, besides mocking the pomp and circumstances of the Catholics and the Episcopals, I was wondering what the context was.
It dealt with how religions had a hard time changing.
Okay.
And because they have a hard time changing, they have a hard time accepting other religions.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a sketch I did for tomorrow for Inktober that I've already done today. And I want to hold it up to the screen because I want to give you guys a sneak peek.
Oh,
that's
cool.
Great.
This is the word is graceful.
Oh dear. If anybody's
awesome.
Yeah, I was pretty pleased with how it came out, and I'm hoping that it'll get a huge number of hits.
If anybody's curious, this was, oh, come on, you. If anybody's curious, this was my Inktober for today, where the prompt was Carnival Carnage.
The one I did for today is, the word was fat, so I did a big fat spider.
Oh.
Yeah, I saw that on Instagram. That one's pretty good too. Well, I am hoping to work on my one for today. I've been sadly procrastinating every single day in October, and so it's like 11 p.m. before I go to bed was when I actually started doing one.
Well, that probably encourages you to get it over and done with.
Yeah, yeah.
I love how people can do really, really simple ones and get a lot of emotion behind them.
Yeah, I've been finding that my ink work, like getting off of the digital, the Wacom, and just actually doing pencil and ink, I'm getting a lot more satisfaction from it, even though, you know, there's definitely some that I wish I could go back into, but it's so easy to quickly edit something when you're doing it digitally, and with ink, you're just kind of forced to live with it. And
oh, definitely. For me, that's half the point of the exercise. As a matter of fact, I go out of my way to make it harder for myself by limiting myself to a relatively thin marker. Which it's been really cool, because in the process I find it's been sort of developing a secondary style that I definitely want to make more use of.
Yeah, have any of you considered doing an Inktober drawing in ballpoint pen or anything like that? Like something just kind of really out of your typical wheelhouse?
Haven't done ballpoint yet, but the 10-point marker I've been using is pretty close. I stocked up on 1-point markers for by mistake recently, but that was just way too thin for me to wrap my head around.
Back when I started doing Inktobers, that's what I was doing, was I was trying different brushes and would only use that brush. The first time I did it was with a Faber-Castell, and then the next year it was with a pen-tailed brush tip. But now I'm enjoying just using a whole bunch of different tips to get the effect.
I mean, I use Faber-Castell brushes all the time, so that would almost feel like making it too easy for me.
So do any of you recognize this particular space alien?
Yeah. Holy
yeah.
cow.
Wait a minute. You showed that one about a month ago. Is it the same image?
Maybe it is.
It's the children from and I always blank on the name. The Navigators, not the Navigators.
The Explorers. Ian got it.
Yeah. And Robert Picardo was in that movie, wasn't he?
I'll take your word for it.
I'm pretty sure he was. It was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid, so I had one of those moments where I was able to watch it again recently, and I was like, holy cow, that's the Doctor from Voyagers.
I mean, as far as young adult kid films at the time, it was, the technobabble was relatively good.
Do any of you remember the name of the ship they built?
I was not aware that they named it.
Oh, you don't remember that? Ah.
Oh, I don't remember. I only saw it once.
Really?
Well, you gotta admit, I got a few years on you, so.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of science fiction, has everybody seen Blade Runner yet?
Yeah.
I went out and saw it this weekend.
I saw it this weekend too. I was pleasantly surprised.
Really, Bill? Because normally you wait a while before you go see these movies.
I did wait a while. I waited a good 3 weeks.
So what's the verdict, guys?
And also I didn't have to wait on this one. Usually the reason I wait a while is because the friend I watch genre films with doesn't like crowded theaters. So we generally wait up to between 2 to 4 weeks before it goes on. And Blade Runner was not on his list, so I was able to see it relatively soon.
I read an article, I think it was in the Hollywood Reporter, that the box office has been really bad for that movie. Like, people aren't watching it. I've
been hearing mixed things. But apparently it's very popular with 40 and up, but the younger, short attention span types aren't.
Yeah, the people who are younger a lot of them haven't seen the original movie. When you haven't seen the original movie in the theater and gotten that same feel. But also there was a movie release on Friday the 13th that kind of knocked it out of the ballpark. And that's the, I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's basically Groundhog Day, a Groundhog Day themed horror movie.
Oh.
Where she keeps getting murdered over and over and over again. She's trying to solve her murder.
Oh, I saw the previews for that. I can't remember the name either. Yeah. That's the one that took the top in the box office, though?
Yeah, it really went huge.
Oh.
But I give it an 8.
An 8,
really? Horror movie or Blade Runner?
Blade Runner.
So why not full marks?
I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was a very decent sequel.
I liked it because it was one of those rare movies that assumed you were smart and didn't talk down to you. I mean, I'm definitely going to have to see it a second time.
For me, it seemed a little long in places. Like I didn't need.
You don't remember how long the first one was?
No, I do, but I mean, for me, I like concise, like impactful storytelling. Like sometimes when movie scenes draw out too much, I start thinking that the director is more interested in the visual than the actual story. I mean, there's some things you need to draw out, but other things is just like, well, you're just using your budget at this point. but overall, I'd say since I've walked out of the theater, I keep on thinking about the film and all the little just themes and like messaging and everything that kind of were littered in there, and it strikes me as like a really great movie because of that. Because those are the movies that I always love, are the ones I think about afterwards. So
I think it was doing a lot to keep pace and follow the same pacing structure as the earlier film. And the only thing I would put as a negative against it is that in the earlier film, there was little quiet aside moments that really built the world for me that were missing in this one.
I know what you mean. It's sort of like, for all the it didn't feel quite as lived in as the original.
There's a scene in the original where Harrison Ford is eating some takeout food, and he's grumbling and trying to convince the shop owner that he didn't get as many shrimp as he was supposed to. To me, that made it a very human part of the story. That here's this guy, he's kind of grumbling about the fact that, like we all do, I'm being shorted of shrimp, and it didn't have anything to do with the main story. It was just kind of snuck in there as a small little aside as part of the background, and there wasn't quite the same amount of that happening in this film.
Not to mention the whole animals as a luxury item thing. I mean, for example, they virtually ignored the fact that Harrison Ford had a dog.
Well, there was a brief moment where he was asked if it was real or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, like one of the scenes that I originally was thinking about, like, why are we taking this much time on this? Like, so they're going to Vegas, right? And they see all the life signs, and then there's that scene where he's just walking through all these statues, and then he comes across the bees, and it spends probably maybe 2 or 3 minutes like on that scene, like just going through the bees, touching the bees and everything. And at first, after the movie, I was like, why was that important? Like, why all that? And then afterwards, I was thinking, well, because the whole movie is about like the labor of other species, right? Like this kind of workforce. And so it's like this big metaphor. At least that's what I thought. It's like, oh, okay, I get it. But I don't know. Sometimes it seemed like, it just, like I said, it seems like it's more artistic than anything else. So.
I mean, I have nothing against artistic, but then.
Now, I went and saw it in 3D because I just love 3D.
I avoided that. Generally, for me with 3D, either most of the time it doesn't seem to do anything for me, and when it does do something for me, it gives me serious eye strain.
Is it in IMAX or anything?
I'm sure it is. I'd have to look it up.
I haven't checked. Like Bill, I haven't checked. I was a little surprised that I could find it in 3D in a theater. But it's a digital 3D, which I think means they did it after the fact, but I'm not sure.
No.
Have either of you read the original short story, Do Androids Dream of
Electric Sheep?
Yeah.
Okay.
The first couple of pages.
It's been a while. I remember having that phase where I wanted to read all the Philip K. Dick stuff I could, but I can't.
I'm embarrassed to say that, I mean, obviously he's a good writer, but I've never really gotten into him. I mean, I think it's partially a case of where I'm getting a lot of my reading through audiobooks, and some books make better audiobook material than others, and Dick is one of the, so regrettably I can count on my hands the number of Dick novels I've read.
Speaking of movies, did either one of you see the horror made for a TV horror movie called Rose Red?
No, I don't think I've even heard of it.
It's a Stephen King book, and it was actually done sort of like a TV miniseries. There were like 3 episodes of it. Anyway, I went to a wedding in the movie Rose Red. There was basically the Winchester House, but they weren't calling it the Winchester House. You're familiar with the Winchester House?
That's the one with that the heir to the gun manufacturer kept building all her life because she was afraid of the ghosts.
Something like that. In this scenario, it's there's a house that this woman kept building on after her husband died, located in Seattle. It looked like it was up on Capitol Hill. But the actual house that they filmed at is this place called Thornwood Castle. And it's here in Tacoma behind a gated community.
Oh, is that the one that 12 Things I Hate About You was filmed at?
I don't know if it was or not. I think you're thinking of the
10 Things. It's the training of this, the Taming of the Shrew as a high school movie one.
I think you're thinking of the high school campus in which that was done at, what's the name? There's an old girls' school, private school that still lives in the attic of.
Oh, cool.
But I think that's where that was filmed. I don't think it was at. I would have to double check. Why can't I? Annie Wright. The school's name is Annie Wright. It basically looks like it's Hogwarts.
Yeah, I was impressed by it in the movie. I also found it rather amusing of just how, due to good editing, they pretty much created a new setting of their own, because according to the way the camera is being tracks and everything, they make it look as if it's up on the top of Queen Anne. But in reality, no, it's down south right off the water in Tacoma.
What were you saying about the movie?
Rose Red. Anyway, this house, the front of it was used as, and some of the interiors were used for this horror movie.
Yeah.
And the wedding the wedding I went to was held on its grounds, and the wedding reception was held inside, so I got a chance to see it up close.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That'd be like going to a party at the hotel where The Shining was filmed or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
The apparently it is also a bread and breakfast.
Huh.
With I think the cheapest rent night there is $300, and my wife was checking it online. The most expensive room there is $500 a night.
Now, there's people that actually like look for haunted house or haunted hotels to stay in, right? Like they want to stay on the 13th floor and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That reminds me. Have you seen a movie called The Innkeepers?
No.
No.
About these the staff at this one hotel known for being haunted on the night that it's going to be shut down. It's actually a pretty decent book. I mean, decent movie. Did fairly well. I think it's written by the same person who, I'm just guessing here, it had a lot of the same feel as Burnt Offerings and Skeleton Key, which both of those are excellent movies to take.
Wasn't that one, Skeleton Key, based on a King novel?
No.
What am I...
You're thinking of room 2815 or something.
Okay.
Because apparently he couldn't just write about one haunted hotel. He had to write about more. But specifically, that story is about a skeptic who checks into a haunted room to spend the night.
Is that a John Cusack?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I remember reading the short story. I never saw the movie. But yeah, I mean, the short story was, well, it's meant to be scary, but it was pretty. I don't like scary stories.
You don't like scary stories?
I mean, I dive into them like way too much, and then I have trouble sleeping at night because I think about them and stuff, and it's like, for me, movies are escapism. Like I kind of like fall into the world that I'm watching, and so it gets a little too real for me sometimes. But yeah, in general, I kind of avoid the horror stuff.
There was one Stephen King book, and this was only like 10 years or so, that I started reading it, and I had to stop after the first 16 pages, and I didn't go back to it for like 6 months.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it just creeped me the hell out. And a very strong... it was actually one of two books that were basically based on the same premise, telling two ends of a story. Let's see. He was doing a lot of that. He was like Dolores Claiborne is tied into another movie I just saw called Gerald's Game, and it's also tied into another one of his short stories, but I forget which one.
I think the last horror novel I actually read front to back was a Chuck Palahniuk book, and yeah, once was enough. Sometimes I love books so much I read them again and again and again. I would not ever read them again. I can't remember what it was. It was like it's like a collection of short stories, but they were built around this premise of like all these writers being stuck in this hotel, and they all had their own like creepy stories to tell. But it was I mean, it's Chuck Palahniuk, so it gets pretty intense.
I just started reading The Strain, but I'm not getting into it, not quite yet. Not in a in a, oh, this is scary kind of way, but a not getting into it kind of way.
There is a Stephen King book called Mr. Mercedes that apparently has been turned into a series. I'm very curious about that. I have not read either the book or seen any of the series. So here is another alien. Can you?
Oh.
What movie this is from? It's a classic.
You know, I'm stumped. I can't guess. It almost looks like Star Wars to me, but I know it's not.
It's from The Last Starfighter.
Oh,
one of the background ones.
Well, you remember that scene where there were all the potential pilots at that gathering at that space station, and later they would all get blown up?
Yes.
This was one of the pilots that was talking to the kid, just telling him why they were there for, and he was realizing it was the intro for the game.
I think the name of that Chuck Palahniuk book is called Haunted. There was one of the short stories from it, I think, was in like Esquire magazine. It's called Guts, and it's absolutely disgusting. But
jeez.
But it's yeah, for whatever reason, like.
Can you write the title of that in the chat room or on the chat? Because I'm not going to remember.
Haunted?
Yeah.
Sure. Type it in. Let's see.
And the name of the short story was Guts, you say?
Yeah, it's one of the first one in the book.
This coming Saturday is the Bellingham Comic-Con. It's a little one-day show. I've been doing it for years. It's usually one of my better one-day shows. Last year I didn't do so great there, but I'm hoping to do better this year. It's a very small show, and it gets a small crowd. I mean, I wouldn't say more than 4,000, if that. But they come all day, and they usually spend their money. But last year, they weren't spending their money quite as much as they were in years past. So it's different in that you go to a lot of these shows, and of course, you'll have people selling their comic books in long boxes.
Mm-hmm.
But what the stores do is one store will only bring. They forget. They leave they just put the long boxes at home, and they only bring their most expensive stuff. It's the one show that they take all the really prized material to, and people know that, and they'll come there to get that stuff because they know that someone else is going to come to that show to buy that rare item. It's not going to sit on the shelf inside their shop. You know how you're always thinking, oh, I'll get that because it's staying there and it's been at that shop forever and no one's going to buy it. Well, this shop figured out that if they put it here, that can actually create competition to get these more expensive items to go.
What is it about the show that they do that instead of at other shows?
I think part of it is it's halfway during the year from all the other shows. The distance is about 2/3 of the way up from Seattle to Canada. You know, it's pretty close to the Canadian border. So it's an easy trek down for people in Canada. And they come down because they know they're going to find stuff there at this show that Well, and others, even though it's a small show, it doesn't cost much to be outside. It's only like $5. I've always been amazed at the number of Canadians, but in recent years, there have been a lot more Canadian comic book shows starting up.
I think I saw a Vancouver one being advertised a while back.
Yeah, there's a couple in Vancouver. I'm trying to remember. One of them's pretty big. But I think it's the timing and also the location. And you really, if you're an artist and you want to be in there, there's only there's only space for 27 artists.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they can't fit. I mean, there are other vendors, but that's all the more that they can fit into the artist alley section of things. So the artists vie to get in there. I'm kind of grandpa'd in because I've been with them since the beginning. If I ever missed a year, I probably would have a hard time getting back in again. They've got a waiting list of people who just dying, but they're so far away from Bellingham is a little out of the way from other places, so it'd be tough for someone to fill in at the last minute.
And you say it's usually a good show for you?
It's typically I go into the black. My best show there, I went into the black about $300, which for a one-day show, not bad. Especially since I can drive up there and drive back in the course of a day. It's a little bit of a drive. It's a long day because I live down in Tacoma, so it's about a 3-hour drive. But I used to. A friend of mine is in Seattle, and I would stop in Seattle in a place called Ballard. It takes 20 minutes just to get into Ballard from the highway because it's just set down onto the water. There's just no easy way to get to it other than back streets.
You get off on 45th and it's pretty straight way.
45th is not the best way to get down to Ballard.
Okay.
The best way is to get off. If you take 50th and then go down this other back road, and then come over the top from Finney Ridge, that's actually faster.
Yeah. Oh, admittedly, the fastest way for me doesn't count.
Though a lot of people will go on 45th, but 45th tends to be congested, busy, and there's way more lights along it than on 50th.
Which is why I always take the Burt Gilman.
Yeah, it's interesting just hearing the dynamic of Northwest comic scene compared to the Southwest, because I'm trying to think is there any comic convention that people go to Mexico for? And I'm pretty sure the answer is no.
Only if you're a Santo fan.
I imagine some of people south of the border might come up for Phoenix Comic Con or the Tucson Comic Convention, but
is there a big one in Albuquerque?
Yeah, there is.
Okay, I thought I'd heard of one before, but I wasn't.
I thought about doing it. It's been growing pretty fast. I have relatives in Taos.
It seems like Phoenix is getting more comic conventions, and I'm kind of curious as to why. Like, I'm not really into the industry or the scene as much as other people, so I couldn't tell you like how big the demand is. But I used to think like, okay, we have one comic convention, that's enough. But now, in addition to Phoenix Comic Con, we have Fan Fest, and I just saw my brother sent me a email announcement for a separate comic convention that's coming up in the winter, that I guess is kind of competing with the guy who puts on Comic Con and Fan Fest. And so, you know, as far as like the market, you know, demand, it's kind of interesting. Like, how many comic conventions can you squeeze into a year?
Yeah.
I'm doing quite a number of them. Every weekend this month, I'm doing something.
Yeah, I mean, no offense. The only thing I can think of in Phoenix are a few good examples of Andrew Lloyd Wright, and here I am getting the name mixed up.
Frank Lloyd Wright?
Well, yes, Lloyd Wright, examples of his architecture, but otherwise...
Yeah.
I remember the last time I was there on business, my driver was a real Lloyd Wright otaku, and was going on in great detail about him.
Well, I mean, as far as mainstream comics, Todd McFarlane is based out of Phoenix. So Spawn and McFarlane Toys and everything is out here.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the only thing that really pops into my. I wanted to say Angel Medina is based out of here, but he might be in San Diego. I can't remember.
Oh, I'm a big fan of the guy's art, but I'm not sure if I'm familiar with any of personal details right now.
Is he the guy that does Hellboy?
No, that's Mike Mignola. Angel, I can't blank. I got into him. I can't tell you what he's been doing recently, but I got into him when he did the art for Dreadstar.
He did do some Spawn comics. I think that's why he was out here. But yeah, just an amazing artist. So I don't know who else is out here. I mean, I imagine if anybody is watching this right now, they're screaming at their computer screen, and you know, write into Mark and let me know why I'm wrong. But,
leave your comments down below in the comments thing.
Well, nothing like a little bit of controversy to get more eyeballs.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, I'd love to have a bigger comic scene out here. I know there's a lot of independent creators, but the ones that I actually knew, for the most part, they've all moved, which is a shame. One of the guys who's really up and coming in webcomics, Tavis, excuse me. He what's his comic? He does a webcomic called Stranger Danger, and let's see.
I think I've heard of that one. Did you mention him before, or am I?
Well, he moved up to Seattle, I think. So he's why can't I remember all this stuff? Thunder Skull Press. I remember his website. So
I forgot to Twitter that we were broadcasting, so I'm doing that right now.
There was an automatic message, but.
Yeah, so Tavis Maiden, he's from Phoenix and Mesa, and he went up to Seattle because he's good friends with Scott Kurtz, and he started doing a side project of one of Scott Kurtz's webcomics. But he has a comic called Stranger Danger. If you go to Thunder Skull Press, and I'll type this into the comments, but he had a really good comic that he kickstarted after he was on the Penny Arcade strip search TV series.
Yeah.
And I am drawing a blank on it, and it's driving me crazy. Tenko King. I'll type that into the.
I think I've heard of that one.
Yeah. So I knew him, but he moved, so I can't really say I know too many other people that are down here. I wish there was more.
Well, there's a number of shows down here, and you have to be careful which ones to go to because, oh, I did one a couple weeks ago that was tumbleweeds. Just nothing happening.
That's more one of the more artsy ones, isn't it?
No, it was a new one that it was Fantasticon 2, and it was basically a long box. If it went back to what a 70s comic book convention would be, which is a bunch of guys getting together in a hotel convention room with their long boxes out and folding tables and just everyone pouring through their long boxes, that's what it was. Nothing else. No costumes, just guys with long boxes.
I was thinking of heading down and doing Jet City.
Well, I'll be. I definitely have a table at Jet City, and I'll be on one of the panels. Jet City is. Let's see. This week on Saturday, I'm doing Bellingham. Next weekend on Friday, I'm back in Bellingham again at the Eagles Lodge for what's called Night Gallery, which is the opening night of a horror film convention. And they found that if they did the kickoff with a bunch of horror artists, that people really enjoyed that, and so did the horror artists. So it's a good thing. They're expecting about, I don't know, 500-600 people. It's a small venue, but I think there's going to be like 20 artists there, maybe more.
Definitely sounds like it's up your alley.
Yeah, it fits with my stuff.
Yeah. Well, I remember you were pretty happy with that that movie theater that poster that you were doing.
Oh yeah, the Killer Clowns thing.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I was trying to. I didn't go over so well at the last conventions I was at. I sold maybe one or two. I did this other show called Zombie Fest, but it turned out to be a bit of a bomb because it went from being real vendors to people just giving away samples and free items. So I kept having to swap people's hands and saying, no, that's not free. You have to pay for that. So I don't think I'm going to be doing that next year. There was another convention that was happening at the same time I was doing Fantasticon called Geek Girl. And I've done Geek Girl before. And Geek Girl is a 2-day event. Or it's become a 2-day event. When I did it, it was a 1-day event. They've got some new management, so it was tough to get in for a while. Then suddenly a bunch of staff quit or left, or there was a falling out, as so often happens in the comic book convention world. Drama ensues.
Oh yeah, Phoenix Comic Con's never without drama. It's well, did you guys know about the guy who showed up with like tons of weapons and everything at this latest Phoenix Comic Con?
Oh yeah, we heard all about that.
Yeah. So I was in the convention center when that was going down, and I remember I was bringing up a box of shirts to the booth that I was helping out with, and there was just like a row of cops up on the second floor, which really freaked me out after I learned everything that happened, because he got past first floor security, made it up to the second floor, and I don't know what the rationale was, but they were following them the whole time. But to even let them get up that high and into the convention was kind of scary. But yeah, anyway, I mean, that was on the heels of like this big controversy where they wanted to charge people to be volunteers. And so so it's never without controversy.
The big thing over here was people are doing away with the free volunteers because the free volunteers aren't doing their jobs, And most of Washington conventions have paid volunteer works. And there's people I know who are consistently hired to do conventions.
Huh.
One of my friends is a guy named Roy. Roy does all the conventions. He's particularly well known for not acting weird around celebrities, just because he's done it so much that it's kind of worn off. So if it's say, hey, can you go and handle and be with so and so today? He can act professional and not kowtow or not be impeding on them when they're trying to eat their lunch and talking to them. And then he knows how to give them their space.
Wow. I guess that is kind of a skill. I mean,
because you get volunteers, and it's just like you get a bunch of creepers just wanting to be volunteers so that they can hang out with the celebrities.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So I'm wondering what my wife and I are going to do tonight, because we went to Costco this weekend. Of course, you have to buy your food in bulk when you go to Costco.
Mm-hmm.
And we always get a bag of frozen chicken. And somehow it got left in the trunk of the car last night, and it all thawed out.
Yeah.
Well, either we're going to be cooking a lot of, you can freeze chicken twice, but you have to cook it right before you can freeze it again.
Right.
So, and Monday night is usually our night to eat out. So, I don't know which. We might still eat out, and then she'll come home and grumble and do some cooking.
I have that stupid jingle from television. I can't remember what the product was. It's just, I feel like chicken tonight, like chicken tonight.
I know that jingle.
What was that? Was that just like sauce that you poured on top of your chicken? That was it?
I thought it was some chain for a chain. I'm pretty sure it's not KFC, but.
So you know the jingle, Bill, but you don't know who the jingle's for? I call BS. You don't know the jingle.
Who are you and what have you done with Bill?
I mean, that's like saying, the jingle to Wrigley Spearmint Gum. But do you really know the theme song to, or the jingle to Wrigley Spearmint Gum? Wait, now I'm trying to remember the theme, the jingle for Wrigley Spearmint Gum.
On another note, see what everybody thinks of this so far. Still brainstorming on this week's month's creative character design challenge, and I've been sort of blanking on it. The
demon on the right-hand side needs much bigger calves. It looks like he's basically got chicken feet. And the fact that you've added scales on top of them, they're not highlighting the feet in any type of way whatsoever. So I think that's a weak point on it.
Okay.
Are there stories behind these characters, or are you just kind
of? I'm just cranking. I'm sort of cranking out a handful of ideas since I'm not. Since I haven't had an idea that sort of came to me immediately, I'm just sort of deliberately throwing ideas on the wall. My basic beyond the whole this month's subject is demon bit. I've been mostly going from basing my ideas on medieval woodcuts with a few exceptions. And actually, I think it's kind of refreshing, and sort of trying to fill a page of about 8 different very different versions in a half hour. I should do more of that.
Well, what's the project? I mean, is it kind of like
Oh,
Inktober?
didn't I told you about that last time. It's this. Here, I'll put it down. It's this character. It's this monthly character design contest with some really good talent participating in it. So I like to go in. The bulk of the people of this are so good that you don't go into this thing to win. You go in to create something that does not embarrass you. But I like it because this is very good, and they also have they're also one of the most useful reference libraries for visual.
Speaking of reference, the Graphic Artists Guild, Ian and I will be doing a presentation. Is it next week, Ian, or the week after?
I believe it's next week, next Wednesday.
Yes, it's going to be next Wednesday, so we should probably plug that. Look for it's Ask a Cartoonist.
Yeah, you want to put that URL up there, or?
Yeah. And if you're a member of the Graphic Artists Guild, you can attend the webinar free.
I think it's free in general, actually.
Oh, I thought non-members had to pay.
Usually,
I was pretty sure this one was one of the free ones as well.
At least I hope it's free. I've been telling people it's free because, yeah, I know usually
It says on the main page that it's free.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow, it's free. Then I'll really start pumping it up.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get a really good turnout because of that. But it's meant for students, which is why I think it's free. I don't really know what the.
Oh, which reminds me, I'm not sure if I've plugged it on UW Graphic Novelists yet.
One of the people that I invited to this session was from the UW graphic novel.
Okay.
So, folks, if you want to attend, please send me your email address or whatever address, either your Gmail address or the email address you use to create your Google Plus account. Because I'm cutting and pasting those email addresses into the invite that I send out every week, and I now have a set list. It's gotten to be a bit of a bother to create invites on both Facebook and on Google. Plus, a lot of the invites in Google Plus aren't transferring over because for some reason, the avatars, if you like type in a person's name, you know how their avatar is supposed to pop up? It's not popping up. Even when I type it in correctly, the only thing that seems to really work is when I enter in the addresses. So when you guys did it, how do you go about it? Do you wait till it pops up in your email, or do you wait? Or do you go onto Google Plus and go into your Hangout room and wait for the notification to show up?
For you, I wait for it to. I've had iffy results with the Google, so I wait for the email.
Yeah, I still get the Hangout notification, and I just join it.
And then the weekend after I do Night Gallery is the 3-day, I think it's the first weekend of November for Jet City.
Yeah. I'm seriously thinking about going down for that.
You should take the train, Bill,
Hmm.
because the train will let, if you're in Seattle, you take the train down. It
Right.
lets you off at the train station. There's now another train you can take that's sort of like a free city train that goes from that location to downtown.
Yeah.
And it is the convention center is along the way. You just have to hike up the hill 1 or 2 blocks.
Right. No, I'm seriously thinking about it. I mean, the taking the train to Portland worked so well for me. I definitely see every reason to make a habit of it, at least as far as business trips and stuff. I make myself a lot more mobile.
Now, if you could probably attend Rose City the same way,
Hmm.
because the BART goes right to the convention center, and I know that the BART goes to the train station. It also goes to the airport. You may want to double check and not trust me on that, though.
It could be completely lying to you.
Yeah, Bill's not the type to, decide, "Oh, the hell with this, I'm going to call Uber."
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting totally slammed on the Uber issue.
Well, what do you mean by that?
I mean, mostly I'm oblivious to it, but then I have every time I'm on a business trip, I have all my colleagues evangelize at me for 48 hours.
Oh,
Bill's more of a bus person, but, a bus doesn't get you there in time.
5:30.
Oh, that was the 5:30 call. Ladies and gentlemen, you have watched another episode of Epic Sketch Time. Before we sign off, let me copy and paste this chat room information.
Yeah, apologies. I accidentally posted the character design reference page twice, but as I said, I very much recommend it.
well, I just posted my my Inktober drawing on Instagram, so I'm sharing the screen right now if anybody's interested.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I follow you. Let me fix that.
Why don't you say something again, Ian, because it's popped off the main screen.
Oh, did it? Oh, yeah, because it's just following whoever's talking, right?
Yes.
Well, let me share that screen. So, and I guess in the page for this Hangout, I'll put a link to my Instagram account. If you want to follow me, I'll set it off of private because my personal one I keep on private. I'll have to create a public facing one for my company and just repost all these Instagram ones on there. But
okay, I do follow you. Okay, here it is. I was looking right at it, but there's a like.
Thank you, sir.
No
well,
I'm trying to read what it says. It's EM underscore, or is it, what is that?
Yeah, it's
N as in Nancy, yes.
Yeah, EN like my name, except spelled phonetically. So Echo Nancy and then underscore Instagram. So Instagram, because I'm trying to be clever. But that's
And
yeah.
Here I was being completely obtuse and thought you misspelled in.
That's always a possibility. Never discount that. So.
Well, gentlemen, I will. I should mention that I will not be hosting Epic Sketch Time next week. I'm going on a fishing trip with my dad.
Oh, very cool.
So if one of you gentlemen want to host Epic Sketch Time, I'll send you over the email list. But otherwise, we're going to be taking a break next week.
Okay.
Right. Well, enjoy the fishing.
Okay.
Oh, thanks. I'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, everybody.